near it and the risk is too high. Also tonight.
We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland.
Well, this is unravelling pretty quickly, isn't it? Donald Trump, a few days ago, speaking there, breaking tonight. The White House says that it will take Greenland, is looking to acquire it soon. This just a few days after the president said that America is running Venezuela. It is, of course, another massive story for you tonight. I'm going to be joined by the former US ambassador to Denmark to see what she thinks. And remember this from Labour supporter and celebrity chef Tom Kerridge.
I've been a Labour supporter all of my life. My background, where I grew up, the way in terms of family background, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the Labour Party has always been the one that I felt is politically closest to where I'm from and where I believe.
Very successful chef. That was how it started in 2024. How's it going now, Tom?
We've got 4 spaces, 4 pubs, and all of them are going up at, pretty much over 100%.
Over 100, even
over
with
100%.
Even with the relief that the Treasury says it's providing.
Yes, it's not relief that's taken away. It's actually, we're just softening the blow. It's still killing you off in 2-3 years' time. The moment the business rates have gone, that's it. What's the point in being open?
What is the point in being open? Well, if a top celebrity chef worth millions is struggling to keep his business open, what hope do the rest of the hospitality locations have? We're going to be discussing all of that with someone who spoke to Tom Kerridge about his support for Labour. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Now, my panel in London, GBNews contributor Paul Cox is sticking around with us this evening. It's so nice to have you here in the flesh.
It is always lovely to see you, Bev.
You're normally down the line for me, of course, when I'm in Washington. It's nice to be here with you. And also, Carol Kilgore is with me.
Hey, Bev.
Claire. Carol, sorry.
Thanks.
We've had some confusion this evening about it being written wrong. Carol is here with me, joining us from Washington, D.C. as well this evening is Connor Stringer, another regular face from the Daily Telegraph. Good evening, Connor. Thank you so much for being there in the studio, all on your own tonight, but we are going to keep you company. We're going to go back to you as much as we possibly can. And can I just ask you, Connor, before we start, who'd have thought the year would start quite as busy as this from an American point of view, eh?
Can you believe it, Bev? Good to see you. It's a bit weird being in your seat, actually, and you not being here, keeping it warm in your absence. What a start to the year. Can you believe it? Venezuela to Greenland. We're only, 6 days in? I was hoping I would get a bit of a smooth start to the year, but it's even more relentless than what we ended 2025 in.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, isn't it? Right, we're back with you in a little while, Connor. But before we get into our top story, let me bring you this breaking news. So 24 hours ago, the prospect of America invading Greenland shortly after its intervention in Venezuela would have been out of the question. But 24 hours is a very long time under a Donald Trump presidency, because after Trump had repeatedly said, we need Greenland, well, moments ago, the White House tonight said the administration is discussing acquiring Greenland and that utilising the US military is always an option. The spokesman for the White House said they're looking at purchasing the country, that it would be during Trump's current term, and they reiterated Trump has made clear that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority. The governments of Greenland and Denmark have requested a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So let's bring in the panel here. Let me come to you, Paul Cox.
What a start to the year, Bev.
Right, what's going on, Paul? Can you just help me understand what exactly is going on here? When he says he wants to acquire Greenland, what do you think he means?
I think he means he wants to take ownership of Greenland. The only thing I can think of comparable to this is Gibraltar. We own Gibraltar. It's under British rule at the bottom of Spain there, and it protects a certain sea channel. So in years gone by, we've had a stake in that area. I think that what Donald Trump is trying to do is a very similar thing with Greenland. We said on the previous show, this sits halfway between the States and Europe. It's strategically very important from being attacked from Russia and China. It has onshore minerals that are very lucrative. It has huge offshore oil wells, which also are very lucrative. It's no surprise that when he liberated Venezuela, that he did so because of the oil as much as Maduro. And the same comes with Greenland. If Donald Trump wants to make America great again, I think that this is the way he thinks he needs to do it, and that's by increasing his stake in planet Earth.
Yeah, I think it is about the rare earth minerals, Carol, because looking into it today, China have basically built their green infrastructure really quickly, really cheaply, quicker than anybody else thought that they would. Actually, we hear all the time about the fact that they're opening coal-fired power stations, but they are pushing the green agenda, and they've done it quickly, they've done it cheaply. So I'm talking about things like the wind turbines, solar panels, batteries. And China and Russia own 80% of the Earth's mineral resources. The West has been caught napping. Is this President Trump catching up, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, people are laughing and mocking him for this so-called absurd idea of what he says he's going to buy Greenland. That's not actually, I think, what is on the cards. There is a bill in Congress which was put through or introduced last year, about a year ago, called the Make Greenland Great Again. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? And the way that it could be done legally is several routes, but currently the U.S. has a agreement in place with Micronesia. With they did a deal for the Philippines a while back, so it's sort of like a protectorate. It's similar to, as you mentioned, Paul, the Gibraltar scenario. I mean, Greenland, as you know, is not technically part of the EU because they exited EU in 1985. Greenlanders, interestingly, do have EU passports. So if you're a Greenlander and you have the opportunity to also get a U.S. passport and have dual citizenship, and Trump and his administration want to make developments, allow companies to come in and utilize the resources, not in the same way potentially as China would do, because there's this whole movement now to a multipolar world where there is the U.S. hegemony, but there's also now China, Russia, as you mentioned. But, and I might be biased to say this, Russia and China, when they go in, they extract, and they do so only for their own benefit, for the benefit of those in power, for those elites in their countries, whereas I believe Trump's administration wants to make prosperity, wants to make flourishing for the people of Greenland.
Let me bring in Connor from Washington this evening. Connor, we're all on these very steep learning curves about the minerals that are underneath these countries that we've not had to really spend an awful lot of time thinking about. Apparently, China tried to buy into Greenland's mines, and the projects were blocked by the EU using environmental concerns. So, in a sense, what could happen here is that actually the EU that wants Denmark to remain in control of Greenland, the EU might end up going to battle with Trump over this island as well, this country.
Yeah, it's highly likely. And you're right, Bev. Greenland is strategically important, not just for security, like you say, the threat against Russia and China, but also, like you say, it's got that deep wealth underneath with the minerals that are yet to really be exploited. The infrastructure isn't fantastic. And what President Trump is doing is his textbook stick before the carrot approach. Diplomats tell me behind the scenes they don't really believe he's going to use military intervention. It would be unthinkable, never done before, and just kind of outside the realm of possibility. But what he may do, and what he wants, is coming up with some kind of deal that will kind of see Greenland under US ownership, so they get to reap the rewards and the strategic rewards of having that island, while Greenland keeps its independence. And that's the big thing here. That seems to be the issue on that Greenland isn't budging on. So as long as you give them that, there might be a creative workaround that Donald Trump is interested in doing.
Yeah, and how is it going down there in Washington? What's the reaction that you are hearing from people around the White House, Connor?
Well, it's pandemonium today, Bev. Just as you say, before we come in air, the White House doubling down on those comments, saying that actually we're not going to rule out military intervention, which has caused a lot of hysteria here, as you can imagine, everyone running wild with it and picking up on it. Look, I think people behind the scenes, you speak to people in the White House, are saying this is all about messaging, okay? This is all about putting a very strong, forthright message out there that brings Denmark to the negotiating table, and so they can begin this conversation about ownership. But the hard part is getting in there. You've got to get something, an incentive to get them there. In this case, it's the stake, it's the threat of US military intervention. And you must remember they're riding high off a fantastic military operation in the capture of Nicolas Maduro. They've proved to the world that they can pull off the most unimaginable things, often in the most inconceivable way. Greenland's pretty inconceivable. That's the kind of threat that they're dishing out to Greenland at the moment.
Yeah, we'll talk as the evening goes on about the confidence being displayed by President Trump today. I mean, he was positively giddy on that stage, wasn't he? He started at 2026 with a smile on his face. It's extraordinary. Right, stay with us, Connor. Thank you from Washington, D.C. Now, moving on to our main news this evening. And tonight, the Prime Minister announced that there will be British troops in Ukraine.
Alongside President Zelensky and President Macron, we went even further today. We signed a declaration of intent on the deployment of forces to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. This is a vital part of our iron-cast commitment to stand with Ukraine for the long term. It paves the way for the legal framework under which British, French and partner forces could operate on Ukrainian soil, securing Ukraine's skies and seas, and regenerating Ukraine's armed forces for the future.
Starmer just looks so much happier when he's talking about global issues, doesn't he, rather than domestic? Well, British troops alongside French in Ukraine, but only, of course, if there is a peace deal agreed with Russia. So that joint declaration was made in Paris this evening. The Prime Minister also said there'll be military hubs. They do love a hub, don't they, this government, set up in the Eastern European country. And the plans are being supported by America, who said that they will monitor the situation. Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron were joined by Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who, as I say, did support this and said this is a very important step towards peace in Ukraine. Let me know your thoughts this evening. gbnews.com/your say. You can vote in our poll. Do you agree that we should be sending British troops into Ukraine in the event of the war? We'll bring you that QR code in just a little while. But let's speak now to somebody that knows a thing or two about these things. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, former British Army officer. Stuart, thank you so much for joining me. So, simple question. In the event of a peace deal, would you like to see British soldiers out there keeping peace?
Oh, well, that's a very interesting question. Would I like to see it happening? Ideally, I wouldn't like to see them because there shouldn't really be any requirement. But I think that given the fact that Trump's White House, Trump's administration in America is quite clearly signaling that it is turning its attention away from Europe and to concentrate on other things, and it's been quite clear over the past year of his second term in office, somebody's got to take the lead. And I think that if you believe, as I do, and you may accuse me of being slightly naive, that the British Armed Forces represent a force for good in a world which is full of many forces which are for evil, then I think on balance, it's a good idea that Britain should contribute to any peacekeeping initiative in Ukraine. The devil, of course, is in the detail. The question is what troops, under what circumstances, under what rules of engagement, and so on and so forth. But in general terms, I am in favour of British troops being deployed to Ukraine as part of a multinational peacekeeping force. My only question is, how are we going to do it?
And as we know, we can see from the situation in the Middle East, sometimes these peace deals are very fragile and can break down at any moment. The worst case scenario is that we have British troops on the ground. and Russia decide to pick up an offensive attack again, and then we
I'm
see
sorry, I've
British
lost the audio.
soldiers. Oh, can you hear me, Stuart? Have you lost me? I think we've lost Stuart. I think he can't hear me. Let me bring this question to my studio then. Carol, let me ask you, in the event that we do have peace, as I say, they can be very fragile. And a soldier is hit, either accidentally, intentionally, in crossfire, whatever, from Russia. Where does that leave us then? Then we're dragged into this, into more of a hot war.
It's terrible. I mean, just to contemplate. But just getting back to your idea about minerals and the fact that there are these conflicts now that center around resource allocation.
Ukraine is the same.
That's the thing, because it's the breadbasket of Europe. So potentially the grains, and you know, in Ukraine there are all these grain silos, so they have to store the grain for a certain amount of time. Now, if it's stored for too long, not the right amount of time, at the wrong temperature, the grain goes off and spoils. So you're talking about, you know, what is needed to feed a lot of Europe, a lot of the West population. And if, I mean, I'm not saying that the war is, you know, centered around securing the resources, the natural resources of that region, because there are other issues, geopolitical issues at stake. But one does wonder how the role, the importance that that plays. And, you know, has this entire conflict just sent Putin closer to China? Some people believe it has.
And I was trying to cast my mind back, and I will look it up probably when we take our first break, just to remind myself, Paul. But do you remember when J.D. Vance was talking about the peace deal in Ukraine, and he said they've got certain points that we have to achieve? And one of those was, the first thing we do is we agree a deal on the minerals. Again, it's the same theme here.
Yeah, it's quid pro quo, isn't it? They have to have something for it. And do you know what? That makes sense. If you're the superpower in the world and you're going to help people and police the world and protect people, then you're going to want something in return. We're not living in a Disney movie here. And the choices are...
dystopian movies, what it feels like.
It is quite dystopian. However, it's just matter of fact. The choices are, who do you want in charge of the area in which you live on this earth? Do you want the US, who is a democracy, or do you want Russia and China that are not a democracy? We, as Westerners, we've all grown up in Western democracies. We just wouldn't fare well under a Russia leadership. We wouldn't fare well under a China leadership. You have to
Some days it feels like we're getting dangerously close to that.
It does with regards to Keir Starmer, and it's why we repel it so much. When you start to see communism, when you start to see ultra-socialism, as a Westerner, as people that are invested in democracy for 1,000 years, we push back on that and we say, this is not for us. We don't want that. There are places in the earth, on Earth, that you can go and live that way, but it's not here. So there are a couple of things here. People don't like it because it's Donald Trump. You have to park that. The personality has to be parked. So Donald Trump is probably doing the one thing that American leaders should have done 10, 20 years ago, which is get a grip. Just get a grip. Obama was this great leader, we're told, great orator, but he never got a grip. Biden was too elderly, to put it kindly. He was not in charge, and the US just floated around in the Atlantic until Donald Trump came back.
Connor, let's bring you in. We went off on a bit of a tangent then about what this peace deal would be all about, what it would look like. But in terms of British troops being there, I mean, what did you make of it all today? Sometimes those talking shops and, frankly, all the willy-waving that happens when you get Macron and Starmer and everybody in a room together, it often just makes me want to switch off. I just find it really nauseating. But I do feel like when the Americans came, when Witkoff and Kushner said, this was important, we can't achieve peace in Russia without this security guarantee for Ukraine, I was like, all right, I understand I kind of get what you're trying to do here now then.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's the key, Bev, is that the whole way through this has relied fundamentally on what the US are able to guarantee, what they're able to put on the table that will deter Putin from doing something like this again. They call it the backstop. Now, up until recently, they've been reluctant to do anything. Trump's kind of position has always been, it's not our war, sort it out, your problem, I'm not putting US lives at risk. Now, in the last couple of months, there's been a significant amount of process. European leaders have been completely gobsmacked at the way the US have actually come to the table and offered what insiders tell me are platinum security guarantees, the stuff of dreams, the stuff that Zelensky, if he wrote down on a notepad before he went to bed, as his wish list that they've given him. And this has raised questions as to why they're doing this. And the belief inside the White House is that if we give Ukraine and Zelensky the best of the best security guarantees that they wish they had, they must make concessions on territory. And that's what the White House believe is where we can get a quick peace deal, is by offering Zelensky the best security guarantees, he will then have to make concessions on territory. And that is where Putin isn't budging. So if you can get Zelensky to budge there, you get Putin to agree, we end up in a position where we have a peace deal.
Yeah, I just wonder whether the British public would be happy for British troops to be on the ground there in Ukraine in order, as you say, to keep Zelensky happy, to let him feel reassured that the protection is there, to concede some land. There's all sorts of compound thinking is required to imagine this scenario, and at the base of all of this is whether we can keep our troops safe in that sort of environment. And I think the appetite in this country at the moment is no. We're just not interested, just sort it all out.
Right.
But what could Starmer do? Because he had to be there today. We can't, as the UK, we can't not be involved in that scenario. Do we know what Maloney said? Did Maloney say that her troops would go and stand in the peacekeeping forces by the end of the day? Because she was a little quiet, I think, Giorgia Maloney of Italy.
She was indeed. You're absolutely right. No, the answer is no on that one. Look, Starmer has positioned himself as this kind of international peace figure. He's struggled domestically at home, and like you said actually earlier in the programme, he's much more comfortable when he's abroad. He feels like that's the easiest position. He can handle it very well. It's a pretty straight line. The public opinion is generally Russia bad, Ukraine good, and we need to support them. However, as you say, the army at home has been struggling. We've seen numerous stories about lack of resources, equipment broken. I think you yourself and Charlie Peters, your colleague, have done several great stories about the state of some of the accommodation falling apart. The focus should be on making sure we have a ready and fit army. That's the position of the country, I think, and where people all agree we should be spending our money. There will be concerns that we are already overstretched and are now faced putting our limited troops into another country at risk of conflict. I can appreciate Britain has played a central role in this, and we must continue to do so. But there are going to be serious questions around if we're able and fit and ready to do this.
And I tell you what, if our Your Say site is anything to go by, the British public have questions about how come we can find troops to protect other people's borders, but not our own, when they could be put quite easily in Calais to wave people back in the opposite direction. Connor, thank you so much. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live, we're going to get more reaction to the news that our troops are to be deployed in Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. Let me know what you think, won't you? I know you will. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. a country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I've got Carol Kilgore with me in the studio tonight, and Paul Cox and Connor Stringer down the line in Washington, D.C. Two massive stories, basically, in the world, which combine our country and America. And I've got to bring you some more breaking news. Donald Trump has just warned Venezuela's Interior Minister to cooperate or become a potential target. Now, this statement has just been released on Truth Social, and the president has said, I am pleased to announce that interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 to 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. Oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me. Let's get more reaction to that from my panel. Paul Cox.
Well, what it doesn't do is allay the fears of those that are kind of anti-Trump and think that he's trying to be the emperor of the world. That's the one message I would take away from that I would caution him on. I don't have any... genuinely, I thought what happened in Venezuela was an incredible feat of military prowess on Sunday, and the idea that Maduro should be usurped, I don't really have an issue with. Obviously, we're all a little naturally squeamish about just going into other countries, taking away their leadership, taking their oil and saying, this is what we do. What I'm really glad is we've got this US show on GB News now where we can really talk about this, because 2026 is going to be absolutely massive. I mean, just on his messages alone, this is the sort of... You know, if we just went back 5 years... One of these messages a month would make great news.
Yeah.
We're getting one of these messages a day now.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I understand that they invested a great deal, the US, in helping find that oil and getting it out of the ground. So they do see they have some ownership, and that Maduro took that away from them by means that were not necessarily legal, and that's why he finds himself in a US court. So I don't really have any massive issue. I would say the rhetoric around it, though, to sort of say, behave, we're taking the oil and I control it, is going to make some people feel a bit uncomfortable.
It is a bit, isn't it? I wonder if we should go back to Stuart now. Stuart Crawford, former British Army officer, joins us now. Oh, and my panel are all here as well. Fantastic. Stuart, I don't know whether you've just heard that breaking news there. Donald Trump putting out a statement saying that Venezuela's Interior Minister will cooperate or become a potential target. He said, I'm pleased to announce interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 to 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States. It'll be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me. As a military man, how do you feel when you hear the President of the United States talking like that?
Well, it fills me with disquiet, to be honest, because he's clearly throwing his weight around. And so far, there's nobody who appears to be standing up to him. He's become, I suspect, the bully in the playground because he thinks he can get away with it. And I do worry sometimes about his well-being, his mental health. And I know others have expressed similar doubts. But as a military man, I think that we're setting the stage for all sorts of possible conflicts in the future in various locations around the world, and all of them seem to be being promoted or sponsored by Donald Trump, and that's a very dangerous thing.
Carol, is it despotism or is it strength?
It's neither. It's pragmatism. Because what you can't have is people queuing at the petrol stations in the U.S., paying through the nose like in the 70s, which was a horrible, horrible time for the U.S. Nobody looks back fondly on those times. So what Donald Trump is doing is he's securing the oil reserves. Venezuela has 303 billion proven barrels of oil reserves. It's the largest crude oil in the entire world reserves, and that type of crude is the heavy oil. That's the oil that is needed to be extracted for those big gas guzzlers in the U.S. And so he's thinking about his people. He's not a despot. He's protecting America.
And Connor, the person who I think he's trolling here is Xi Jinping. This is Beijing. They are the ones who will despair when he makes these statements. He's talking to China all the time, isn't he?
You are absolutely right, and that's what no one's really picking up on. Is this is twofold. It's China and it's Iran. Remember, Venezuela and China had a massive footprint. President Xi had a massive footprint in Venezuela, and all they were doing was taking sanctioned crude oil from Venezuela to the ports of Caracas all the way over to Beijing. What Trump is doing is trying to give America a renewed foothold in the Western Hemisphere, where they feel like China have got the head start and managed to make much more headways with natural resources like crude oil and other minerals in America's backyard. What he's doing is essentially cut off Xi Jinping's, one of his lovely little oil supplies, and redirecting it to the United States in the hopes of lowering the oil price and therefore gas prices at the pumps. This is all international politics more than it is domestic, Bev. You're absolutely right.
And I wonder how it will go down, Carol, with his MAGA base. Because when they do go to fill up their cars, or when they see their electricity bills and their gas bills and everything starting to go down, that they're going to love this.
That's the thing. I do fear that we'll take it for granted, though, because there's that side of MAGA that are so anti-war, so they've been burned by Iraq, and they don't look back fondly on the Bush years and the neocons, and so they're going to slap this label on Trump as a neocon. He's not a neocon. He is so. If we're moving to a multipolar world where it's not just U.S. in charge, but you've got China, you've got Russia, you've got U.S., you've got, the U.S. has to compete with the BRICS. And now the issue is you've got oil being sold by other countries who are not pegged to the petrodollar. So if Saudi won't be selling their oil as much anymore, I think Saudis are kind of pulling back on that because OPEC don't want the price of oil to be low, then there has to be a supply from another source. And that's what Trump is doing, securing that supply for Americans.
Stuart, when Trump did, let's say, eject Maduro from his from his bed, it sounds like that in the evening a few days ago. I mean, gosh, it's only a matter of days ago how quickly things have changed since the weekend. A lot of people were saying America has no right to do this. America can't be enacting regime change. Actually, no, Trump can't be enacting regime change. Trump has no right to do this. America has quite a long history of doing this. People forget that they've been doing this for years in various countries around the world. Do you see any comparison with former instances such as Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan, etc.? Does this feel different to you?
No, I think it's part and parcel of the same sort of a thing, to be honest. I mean, the operation, from a military point of view, the operation in Venezuela was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And if you compare and contrast it with the botched Russian attempt to do very much similar thing in Ukraine, you can see how far ahead of the game the US is. And they have the means to do it again, should they so choose. And there are very few people who can stand up to it. Whether it will be applied again in places like the Panama Canal, Greenland, Mexico, Colombia, you know, choose which one that the president has mentioned in his recent rants, if I can put it that way, then we have to wait and see. But no, there's a pattern here, and the USA, under the Trump administration, is throwing its weight around. And at the moment, there appears to be no political antidote to that.
No, well, there's certainly a huge amount of confidence coming from the White House today. Stuart, thank you so much. Stuart Crawford, their former British Army officer, thank you for staying up late to join me on The Late Show Live. Let me know what you think this evening. gbnews.com/your say. Still to come, I'm going to be talking to the former US ambassador to Denmark. I'm going to get her reaction on the potential military intervention in Greenland, which is a sentence I can't even still believe I'm saying. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev, here in London still. Ben Leo will be back in DC for you from Thursday night, and I'll be back there from Monday. Now, let's go back to that story that I mentioned at the top of the show. After Donald Trump repeatedly said, we need Greenland on Air Force One just a couple of days ago, moments ago, the White House has said that the administration is discussing acquiring Greenland and that they will, and that utilising the US military is always an option. The spokesman said they're looking at purchasing the country and that it would be during Trump's current term, and they reiterated Trump has made clear that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority. The governments of Greenland and Denmark have requested a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Let's now talk to former United States Ambassador to Denmark, Carla Sams. Carla, what a pleasure to have you with me this evening. Now, you know this country incredibly well. You know Greenland well. You know Denmark well. Just your reaction to the way this has unfolded in such a short space of time, please.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast events have developed since President Trump came into office less than a year ago. From saying we need to own Greenland right out of the box to beginning to discuss it over and over, and then his actions in Venezuela, his warning to Iran, and then saying this, but especially his deep desire to make sure that the Western Hemisphere is secure is a very exciting thing. It's exciting to watch because things happen when President Trump moves his team and intends to make changes.
So when he says he wants to acquire Greenland, what's your understanding of that?
Well, I'm not sure what he means by that. I saw the word buy, purchase. So I'm not sure what he means by that, because a COFA, free association with Greenland, wouldn't cost the United States any money up front. I'm sure the Greenlanders would prefer to continue the kind of economic welfare that they receive from Denmark every year, which is around $600 million a year. But there are benefits to having that relationship. I'm sure Denmark benefits economically far more than $600 million a year with the resources that are pulled out of the water and the ground in Greenland. So there's a close relationship with Greenland and Denmark, but Denmark can't afford to develop Greenland, and it also will never be able to defend it.
What will the people of Greenland think about this?
Well, I think it's really up to the people of Greenland, but they have said over and over again that they want to go independent. They intend to be independent from Denmark. They really don't generally like Denmark. Denmark was an oppressive colonial power 100 years ago. They would, before World War II, actually, they wouldn't let the Greenlanders own rifles. They wouldn't let them own kerosene lanterns. These were like fantasy things for the Greenlanders because the Danes kept them living almost like Stone Age people. They did not let them modernize. Once the military, our U.S. military, occupied Greenland from World War II until in the 90s when the Berlin Wall fell and we all took that peace dividend, we left those bases, those ports, those airports, and turned them over to Denmark.
And so China apparently tried to buy into the Greenland's mines at one point quite recently, I think, and those projects were blocked by the EU, citing climate concerns and environmental issues. Is that the kind of thing that America could now do, is to invest in the country, to get involved in the mining of these minerals? And when Trump uses the word, we'd like to buy Greenland, what he's talking about is investing in the country to potentially the benefit of Greenland as well.
Well, a couple of things there. First of all, I'm not sure that he means buy into the mining. I think he may mean a cash transfer to Denmark to take control of Greenland. I'm just speculating. I am not speaking for the administration. But as far as those mines go, when I got to Denmark as ambassador, Greenland, the majority of those mines had a minority interest owned by the Chinese. a majority of the mines were partially owned by the Chinese. There was almost no American investment up there. And so to see that and then see China try to pull Greenland into the Belt and Road Initiative, they tried to finance and build airports in Greenland, 3 of them. And we know Greenland wouldn't have been able to service the debt and they would have been poorly built. And then China would have taken some economic control. Well, Denmark didn't allow that to happen. We worked with Denmark, and Denmark actually financed those airports, and then China declined to build them once they couldn't finance them. So you can see more debt trap diplomacy right off our coast, our northeast coast.
Carla, is what we're witnessing here with Trump in 2026 are individual proxy battles all around the world against China and Russia under the auspices of something else? Is that what's actually happening here?
Well, I think it's a little more complicated by that, but you could almost boil it down to that. If you see what President Trump just did in Venezuela, let's not forget Iran, who had a firm hold there. Iran was more powerful there than Russia or China.
Yeah.
And they had Hezbollah there with terrorist training camps, and they were spreading that throughout South America and the Caribbean. Very bad in the U.S. backyard. Unbelievable that it was allowed to go on by prior administrations. So thankfully, President Trump has turned his attention to our hemisphere. It is the new, updated Trump version of the Monroe Doctrine. And he's saying we're not going to allow our adversaries, namely Russia, China, and Iran, to set up shop in our hemisphere and threaten the United States and our allies.
And so can we only assume that Biden was asleep at the wheel whilst all this was going on? And presumably also President Trump didn't get as sort of strong a handle or a grip on this situation as he might have wanted to in his first term. And I wonder why he didn't.
Well, first of all, remember that Chavez took over Venezuela about 25 years ago. So this has been a generation and more. So it actually happened a long time ago in 2000, and no president was able to get on top of this and make the change. President Trump did try to in his first term. He actually recognized Guaido as the democratically elected leader. And when he tried to move, he was so hamstrung and under the oppression of the FBI and intelligence community war on him and his administration with the Russia collusion hoax that they boxed him in. And it was very hard for him to make bold moves that he needed to make and was capable of making. But these 4 years in the wilderness during the, sleepy Joe Biden years, they allowed President Trump and his team to get ready and to know what they were going to do to make the changes necessary to secure not just the American people, but our allies and friends.
Yeah. So interesting, Carla. Thank you so much. What a great guest on that story tonight. Former United States Ambassador to Denmark, Carla Sands there. Right, still to come on The Late Show Live. We're going to get our panel's reaction to all of that. Don't go anywhere. This is GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens. Opinion and debate. And of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk then? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's too late here in UK for this. More breaking news for you. Tensions, it seems, may be growing between Russia and America. We've just heard that the Kremlin has sent a submarine to escort a tanker that has been trying to evade the US blockade of sanctioned oil tankers near Venezuela. Right, let's just try and get our heads around that. Do you understand that, Paul Cox?
Yeah, what I love on the autocue is it says, let's just get the views of our panel. And I think, I've literally learned this as you said it. Look, I can comment on this because Russia and tensions between Russia and the US, there's nothing new there.
Yeah.
What is slightly new there is Trump's reset the rules now. He said that Venezuelan oil, therefore Venezuelan oil tankers,
belong to America.
So the idea that Russia would try and stop them moving in any way, or protect them, or think that they were taking at the sides with Maduro or something like that, is going to be beyond the pale for Donald Trump.
Can you shed any light on this, do you think, Carol? So the Kremlin has sent a submarine, and it says to escort a tanker. Now, escort sounds like it's possibly helping them as opposed to stopping that tanker getting
to get through the embargo.
Venezuela.
I mean, this is pure speculation at this point, but so presumably they would have to get through the Panama Canal, correct? And that was built by the US. And rumor has it the Chinese were trying to infiltrate and take over the canal.
Yeah.
So if Kremlin is escorting the tanker out because they think some of the oil belongs to them, that could be, they could believe it's their own property.
Let's go to our submarine expert, Connor Stringer, in Washington, D.C. No pressure, Connor, but can you get your head around this breaking news and events?
I can. Look,
go on, explain it to us.
Yeah. Let me see what I can do. Right, so the tanker is called, well, used to be called the Bella 1. And there was a lot of US military action off the coast of the south of England in recent days, because that tanker had evaded the US blockade in Venezuela, and it was free. It was hurtling somewhere, we think maybe towards either Beijing or Iran, but it was basically pushed off course and ended up in the Irish coast. Now, what has the tanker done to evade being caught by the US? The US are on the brink of seizing this tanker. They're doing loads of operations, they're training to get it. Here they go. They've sloppily painted a Russian flag on the side of the ship, changed the name overnight, and now declared to be Russian. And you might ask, Bev, why have they done this? Well, that's because the oil, which may or may not belong to Russia, will put it in direct conflict with the US, and they can seek safe haven. Now, you must remember, Russia are one of the 3 countries that the oil out of Venezuela have been sanctioned from, Iran and China being the others. So the idea is that they can seek refuge. The US will hopefully not touch them, because if it's Russian, It's incredibly unlikely that the US would probably brave trying to capture that and take it.
OK, thank you, Connor, for illuminating us on that, at least for now. But stay with us, because anything could frankly happen. Coming up in the next hour, celebrity chef, major regrets about backing Labour. See you in a minute.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Lots of interesting weather to talk about at the moment, and it's another cold and icy start for many of us this morning. Dry and bright though for most through the day, still some showers around. Early doors, a few showers coming into parts of Wales, the west of England. Showers also continuing across the north of Scotland, northeast England. And we're going to see a mix of rain and sleet around the coast, sleet and snow inland. So further snow accumulations, but possibly not quite as many snow accumulations for northern Scotland compared with recent days. For many, it's a dry and bright day with sunny spells, but a cold feel, windier compared with the start of the week. So temperatures of 3 to 6 Celsius, feeling rather cold. Now, we're going to end the day with clear spells for much of central Scotland, further showers coming into the north and northeast of Scotland, 1 or 2 showers drifting into the southeast of Scotland, northeast England as well. Northern Ireland, though, by this time, we'll see an area of cloud thickening up and some outbreaks of mostly rain, but some snow over hills moving in. This is light rain. It's going to push into Pembrokeshire, Devon, Cornwall as well at this stage. As it moves east, it will tend to fizzle away. It does contain slightly milder air, so mostly this is going to be rain rather than snow. And it tends to push a lot of cloud in across the UK. So less frosty, less icy on Thursday morning, but still some slippery surfaces to wake up to, particularly towards the east. And we'll see some brightness towards the southwest, but for most it's a grey start to the day with bits and pieces of rain or sleet around first thing. They tend to dry up and then brighter skies turn up in the east, whilst a next band of rain turns up in the southwest. Now this is Storm Goretti. This has been named by Meteo France because of very strong winds expected over northern France. It will bring strong winds to the southwest, but it's also going to bring a risk of snow to Wales, the Midlands and East Anglia.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You have the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening, Connor Stringer. And that's not your official title, Connor. There are several mega correspondents for Daily Telegraph. But you are absolutely killing it at the moment in DC. Thank you all for joining me this evening. And thank you at home as well. We're just having a look at your inbox. And actually, I'm just going to tell you, don't go to bed, because on this show, it feels a bit strange for us here when I'm in London, coming to work at midnight, doesn't it? It's a bit odd, Paul Cox. You do it with me every week.
Yes, I'm getting used to it. It's changed my sleeping pattern. Just over the Christmas period, I got back to sort of normal sleeping pattern, but it's just about to be smashed.
But of course, normally when I'm in Washington, it's 7 p.m. and Ben Leo and I live a very civilised life. Here, I'm absolutely exhausted. I feel like I've got jet lag this week. But anyway, it's fantastic, and there is so much breaking news coming out of America. Now, today, Donald Trump hailed what he called an amazing military achievement in Venezuela. He was riding high. He was drawing applause from lawmakers. He said he doubled down on the dramatic removal of Nicolas Maduro. He was speaking at the newly renamed Trump Kennedy Center. This was before today, the Kennedy Center, or a few days ago, it was the Kennedy Center. It's now the Trump Kennedy Center. And the president claimed American forces had caught Venezuela by surprise as footage emerged of Maduro being taken to court in New York. Trump also accused the radical left, quote, of paying protesters to demonstrate against Maduro's removal, a claim that the White House has offered no evidence to support, although we did have Nate Friedman on the show last night who had been putting a microphone under the mouths of some of those people. Tensions, of course, are rising. The president promised a major ramp-up in American defence production, declaring nobody can take us. Let's bring in everybody to have a conversation about this. Connor Stringer, and we mentioned it earlier, but the confidence of Trump today, I mean, he was practically giddy on stage. He did the impression of a trans athlete trying to lift weights. He did an impression of his own dancing and talked about how much his wife hates his dancing. I mean, he was very happy today. What a huge amount of confidence he's displaying.
He's in great spirits, wasn't he? Just shows you that, like, kind of one successful military operation, one big win, and Donald Trump's in fine form, isn't he? He is that kind of man. He takes the wins and comes in his strides, and he's moody. We've seen him when he's down. We've seen him when he's annoyed. We've seen him when he's irate with the BBC and the mood that puts him in. So he was happy this weekend after the success of the weekend and in great spirit.
Yeah. Paul, I don't know whether you saw the Trump speech today. He was talking for a very long time, as he does. Just, some notes, but a lot of it just off the cuff, the usual kind of statements that he's saying. It does play into this idea, though, to the Trump detractors, that he's not taking some things as seriously, perhaps, or as presidentially as he possibly should. Well,
I can see that that's an easy argument to make. However, Trump is not a convention. Trump cannot be measured by the same same paradigm as we would measure almost any other leader that's ever been before. One of the things that makes Trump appealing to me is he is just so different. Yeah. The way he communicates is very different. It's energetic. It's exciting. To some people, if you don't like him, you don't like him, and therefore you're never going to see any good in him. I'll tell you what, though, if any of the left-leaning leaders had behaved as Donald Trump behaved last weekend, they would have been all over them like a rash. They would have been incredibly supportive. What we find with Donald Trump is it's people don't like the man. It's not. It's got very. He could come out overnight and fix child cancer, and there would still be large swathes of the left who would say, "I wish he hadn't have done that."
Yeah, if he toned it down a little bit, Carol, sometimes the rhetoric, would that win over more people, do you think?
I mean, he's a bit like Marmite, isn't he? And all the pictures in the paper with his baby hands. I just think he is who he is. He's authentic. The people that don't like him, they're not going to suddenly start liking him because he changes and becomes more what they believe should be the attitude of president.
Should we have a little look, actually? Let's play the clip, if we can, of him on the stage today. I think it's when he was talking about athletes weightlifting. Have a watch.
The weightlifting, but no, the girl gets up. And you see, I want to be more, but I have somebody watching. I want to be more effusive. I want to really, when she gets in drop the thing.
He was in full stand-up comedian mode there today, wasn't he? We need to add stand-up to the list of businessman, property developer, TV host, and now stand-up comedian. He's certainly come out of Christmas full of energy, Connor. And I'm interested in the front page of the Daily Telegraph today, because I don't know whether we can bring this up, but the picture isn't massively complimentary. It is this picture of him pretending to lift the weights, as we've just seen there. Why this picture chosen by your editor, do you think, Connor?
One from our picture desk, exactly, picture desk editor. Look, I think, as you just watched that trip, and many of your viewers will have, it's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary to see a president do an impression of a trans weightlifter in such a kind of, full force and fashion. I mean, it is, and he's literally mental when you say that sentence out loud, and that's what we've got there. I think it kind of speaks very well to where the president is at the moment, the kind of boyishness and a bit silly nature of that speech, and I think that frame is, I mean, it's quite unforgettable, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? Right, let's move on to domestic issues now, guys. Stay with me between now and 2 a.m. We've got a huge amount to get through, but let's move to issues closer to home here in the UK. Now, remember this, in 2024.
I've been a Labour supporter all of my life, my background where I grew up, the way that in terms of family background, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the Labour Party has always been the one that I felt is politically closest to where I'm from and where I believe. But then also moving forward into business, and being a business operator and owner, I firmly feel that, particularly in hospitality, a world that is built on people, the fundamental basics of people's needs in this country, feel that it just doesn't seem to be working at all anywhere.
Well, that was celebrity chef and very successful businessman Tom Kerridge in May 2024, just before the election. He was one of more than 120 business leaders that signed a letter backing Labour as the party of change. Well, that change may not have been in the direction he was hoping for. Here's what he said earlier.
We've got 4 spaces, 4 pubs, and all of them are going up at, pretty much over 100%.
Over 100, even
over
with
100%.
Even with the relief that the Treasury says it's providing.
Yes, it's not relief that's taken away. It's actually, we're just softening the blow. It's still killing you off in 2-3 years' time. The moment the business rates have gone, that's it. What's the point in being open?
Well, let's talk to political commentator Matthew Stadlen, because Matt, you interviewed Kerridge around about that time in 2024 when he was full of enthusiasm. In fact, we've got a little clip that we might show in just a moment. So how do you feel when you see him today, now at the start of 2026, saying that things are desperately bad under Labour, particularly in the hospitality industry?
Hello and good morning to you. Bev, was that clip there, was that
was that one from my podcast?
No, that was actually talking to our mutual former colleague Tom Swarbrick on LBC, but we will...
No, the previous clip.
No, sorry, he was talking to Sky then. He was talking to Sophie Ridge on Sky News originally.
I interviewed him before the election, and I posted on Twitter or X, whatever, I posted his point about the importance of a happy workforce, a workforce that could actually get to work. Just for example, one of the things that he talked about with a functioning transport system, and I thought that was very powerful at the time. I still think it's powerful, and what I've heard from his LBC interview with Tom Swarbrick was the clip that you've played there. So I haven't heard the whole interview. I don't know whether he's, as it were, turned his back on Labour, or whether he is making a specific plea, which is what he does in the clip, on the issue of business rates. And being as concerned as he is, and I suspect as concerned as many are on business rates, doesn't mean that he thinks that the workforce shouldn't be properly paid. So, for example, he's not there, from the clip anyway, talking about Labour raising the minimum wage, which is going to be hugely important to lots of people around the country. Also, on the specifics of the business rates, clearly where businesses are being hit so hard that they are going to go out of business, that is devastating for them. Of course it is. From what I've read, the business rates are not higher than they were before COVID, although that may not be the case for some businesses, I don't know. But don't forget, when COVID happened, which was so devastating for the economy and for so many businesses and individuals, that allowances were made. And what's happened, it seems here, at least to some extent, is a return or an undoing of those allowances. So I think to blame the government too much, I'm not sure is the right way. But certainly, go on.
I think he was making the plea to the government. These business rates are going. He finished the clip that we had. He's like, "What's the point? There's no point in me opening." Now, he is a successful man with several Michelin-starred restaurants and pubs, and he can't make it work when he's got a bit of bandwidth. And I think he said in that interview about the fact that his budget rate, his business rates, have gone up like 100%. Like they've doubled.
Or more. I think he said more. Yeah, I think he might have said more.
I think it was more than that. So it's brutal. And for people like him, to say, to have been so supportive in 2024, what happened, Matt? Carol Vorderman was there. She was very on board cheerleading Starmer into office. She's gone quiet now as well. You were one of those people, I suppose, also saying that Labour would do a good job. So I'm interested to hear from you how you think they are doing a good job.
I will answer that question directly. Let me just quickly remind people what Tom Kerry said to me. I've got it up here.
In fact, let's show it, Matt. We've got the shot. We've got the shot of this, Matt. Let's play it. Let's actually play it, if you don't mind. Here we go. This was Matt talking to Tom.
As somebody that operates within and runs my own business, I understand the point of capitalism. I understand the point of progression. I understand the point of business encouragement and growth. However, none of that happens without a workforce that's happy. None of that happens if there's a workforce that can't get to work, transportation system's bad, or their kids aren't educated properly, or they can't get to see a doctor, or they're worried about having some form of treatment for health. All of the a workforce needs to be looked after for any business to thrive.
So that was from your 20 Questions podcast there, Matt.
Yeah. And by the way, I've interviewed plenty of Conservatives for that podcast. I've interviewed Richard Tice. I think it's important to talk to people you might instinctively disagree with. But on that issue, I think what he says is correct. And that rather brilliantly sums up a huge part of the challenge that Labour has faced since it came to power. And I'm not going to sit here at 1 o'clock in the morning and pretend that Labour hasn't made mistakes and pretend that Labour was fully kitted out, fully prepared for government. I mean, I think you'll find Labour insiders who are no longer in government saying basically that perhaps Labour wasn't quite ready for government as they could or should have been. Don't forget, they were trying to cleanse the party, if that's the right word, of Corbynism. And you could argue that Starmer was the accidental Prime Minister that perhaps it wasn't intended that he would be Prime Minister, but he so spectacularly turned things around. People were so fed up with the Conservatives that he ended up with this massive majority on a very thin share of the vote. No, but I think what Tom Kerridge said there in the clip with me on 20 Questions was spot on. And you do need to have a workforce whose children are educated well. You need to have a workforce who aren't languishing on, or whose relatives aren't languishing on waiting lists, on hospital waiting lists. You need a functioning transport system. You need a workforce that is paid properly. So Labour was facing, no doubt, all of these challenges, which would partly, certainly, I would argue, down to the previous 14 years, or some of those years of Conservative rule, but also down to the pandemic, also down to the effects of Putin's invasion of Ukraine and so forth. So Labour faced a massive challenge. And because Labour boxed itself in, partly because Labour boxed itself in before the election by committing not to raise, for example, income tax, but also VAT and national insurance, and they arguably broke that pledge on national insurance when it came to employers' national insurance. But because they boxed themselves in, they had to find ways of raising tax. And one of the ways they did that was on national insurance employers' contributions. And you could argue that was a poor choice. That hitting smaller businesses was not a way to develop growth, which was at the heart of what they were trying to do. So in other words, I think Labour recognised there were massive challenges, and perhaps they haven't met them or all of those challenges in quite the right way. A major problem for Labour, and I think therefore a major problem for this country, is that it was obvious to some. I talked to Vince Cable, I think before the election, also on the 20 Questions podcast, and he was saying, I think what Andrew Marr had also said, which was that Labour don't have very long to convince people that things can get better, because if they don't do that, then the country will lurch to the right. And by the right, they meant, I think, further right than the Conservatives. Now we can have a debate about what we call that.
I'm literally find myself wringing my hands listening to this, because I genuinely want reasons to be cheerful, Paul Cox. And then I think about unemployment rising to more than 5%, and businesses closing down at record rates. And what I find so frustrating is that under this Labour government, we've still got the massive corporations getting richer and a bigger market share, and we've still got the small businesses and the pubs and the restaurants like Tom Kerridge's closing at record rates. That's under a Labour government, Paul Cox. Is there any reasons we can be cheerful about the economy when we hear Tom Kerridge talk like that?
No, we can't. Tom Kerridge has got huge buyer's remorse. Tom Kerridge does make a good point about the workforce, but there's no point supporting a workforce if you don't need one. And what Labour have managed to do, and there was an awful lot of rhetoric there from Matthew, but it failed to mention that they have smashed the economy so much that hospitality is dead. Almost dead. I work in hospitality. We are on our knees in hospitality. Tom Kerridge wasn't talking about a 100% rate rise since before the pandemic. He was talking about 115% rate rise since last year, since Labour come into power. Under no circumstances should any government think it's a good idea to come in and just decimate a particular industry. All the problems that Labour talked about still exist, and they've added extra problems to the pile. I'm almost exasperated now, and when I hear Matthew say it's Labour's problem, therefore our problem, I long for the time where it's no longer Labour's problem and therefore no longer our problem. We need somebody to come in who understands business, understands growth. We really desperately need someone who understands economics, because there isn't anyone within this Labour cabinet that understands business at all.
And understands human behaviour, and understands psychology, and understands what it means for the mindset of a small business owner when they go onto national radio and say, what's the point of me running this business? I might as well just give up and go on universal basic income.
Bev, I'm not pretending that that what Tom Kerridge is saying about his experience of rate rises is that he's not telling the truth there. I'm not saying that there aren't issues. I accepted that point from the start. Paul, I think, is wrong in terms of what he's talking about the rate rises. The rate rises are rises on what the level is now. And my point about them is, and I think I'm right about this, is that it all changed, or a lot of it changed during the pandemic. And so the situation that businesses find themselves in now is at least in part because of a rollback of help that was given in the pandemic. But let me just tell you about pubs. I've seen, I think in the Telegraph, a chart which shows the gradual decline in the numbers of pubs in this country, and it is very, very gradual. Now, that it's possible that will drop sharply in the next year or two. I hope it doesn't. But so far, the decline has been gradual. And so I don't think we should overstate how bad things are. And I would also say that every time that Labour has attempted to bring in a tax rise, and by the way, I thought they got the threshold, did think they got the threshold wrong with the farmers' inheritance tax, which would be higher. But every time there's a tax rise, most people don't want to pay more tax unless they absolutely have to. So every time there's more of a tax rise, someone is going to be happy and unhappy. And partly thanks to campaigning media organisations and so forth, these people then have a voice. I'm not saying it's bad they should have a voice, but if everyone, I'm going to be paying more tax, more council tax in a couple of years' time, that's going to be quite painful. But I'm not going out protesting about it. Now, I'm not saying my livelihood is on the line in the way that some of these pubs are. But my point is, if we live in a society where every time tax goes up on a particular sector, that sector complains so hard and the government then U-turns, then, if you follow that that logic through to its extreme, we'll end up paying no tax at all. The point of what Labour was trying to do, and I think it may well have got the emphases wrong in the way that it's handled the tax situation, but what it was trying to do is not trying to hurt businesses. It's not trying to hurt pubs. It's not some sort of sadistic organisation, this government. What it is trying to do is make sure there's enough money in public services. Now, we can have a whole debate, as we're having, about whether they're going about that in quite the right way, but they're not trying to destroy livelihoods. They're trying to make sure that the people watching this channel are not languishing on waiting lists, as, for example, my father-in-law was for a long time. They are trying to make sure that, as they're doing with the health service, that we have a functioning health service. They're trying with the transport system to stop strikes so that we can have a functioning transport system. These are really difficult, thorny issues. I don't think the last Tory government got it right. No. And I can tell you this, I am 99.9999% certain that if Nigel Farage and his 4 MPs swell to a majority in 2 or 3 years' time, because people think, well, we might as well give them a go because it can't get any worse, I'm 99.99% certain it will get a hell of a lot worse.
Right, we need to clip that bit and I'm going to play it back to you in 4 or 5 years' time, Matt Stadlen. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, Matthew Stadlen. Right. Well, and also, I mean, I'm sorry, but the 105 private schools have closed since the VAT on private school fees in this country. So when you talk about choices for education, now, if Matt was here, he might say, well, so what? It doesn't, you shouldn't. But all those kids from 100 private schools are now in the state system. How is that helping?
Well, this is the point I was going to make. Look, it's OK taxing. People actually don't mind paying tax if you see what you're getting in return.
That's right.
We're getting nothing in return.
Yeah.
If you pay more tax and you're worse off, and the common denominator is Keir Starmer and the Labour government, then the first thing you're going to want to do is vote them out.
Yeah.
If you are not getting the benefit, all this talk of 14 years of Tory, well, 14 years of preparation were available as well.
Right.
Go on, Ben.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Right, we've got to move on quickly. Another story now. Britain could be on the verge of an historic demographic shift where more people die than are born year after year. Think tank The Resolution Foundation has warned that 2026 may mark the start of a new normal driven by collapsing fertility rates and an ageing population rather than a spike in deaths. But for more than a century, births have almost always outnumbered deaths. But that balance is now on a knife edge, with 2024 seeing only a narrow margin and an even tighter gap expected next year. If the trend continues, the UK faces a shrinking population and a growing challenge for public finances as a smaller workforce is left to support an ever larger elderly population. Let's get the take of Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Simon Hankinson. Simon, thank you for joining me on The Late Show Live. Great to see you. So do we know what's behind this massive shift in demographics?
Well, I guess there's a variety of causes. One would be that it's very hard to find a house. In the UK, a lot of couples can't find an apartment or a house that they can afford where they can raise a family, so they're put it off until their 30s, and sometimes women in particular become much less fertile once they hit a certain point, and so it becomes harder to conceive, and it's a vicious cycle repeating itself. And part of that is the large influx of immigrants in the last 20 years, which has put a lot of pressure on social housing, council housing, as we used to call it, and on the rental market. So I think it's a combination of factors. There are also, personal factors. People want to get a job and work and put off having kids until later compared to their parents and grandparents. It's certainly the case in my family and most of the people I know.
And what are the long-term implications then, Simon, on a very practical level for the population in this country? How will life feel different when we have more people, fewer babies being born?
Well, I mean, just as a human being, it's not going to be so much fun to be in an aging society. We all like to see kids in playgrounds and our schools filled with kids learning, and that's just part of humanity and always has been. So it would be a new thing. I think Japan and some other countries are experiencing it. South Korea has an incredibly low fertility rate. But the long-term effect, look, you can't grow forever, right? If you've ever been to India, which I have, you realize that the population there is too large. When my grandmother was born, there was about 300 million, and Rudyard Kipling used to write about how, incredibly crowded it was, and now there's 4 times as many people. So at a certain point, you either have to even out the population, has to balance out, or it has to shrink back to some level that it can that the country can sustain. If you look at the UK, at the peak, let's say the tail end of the empire, 1950, population was about 50 million people in the home islands, with some other people, overseas in the colonies, what was left of them. Now it's 68 million people, so another 18 million people added to the population. Meanwhile, on every measurable area, the UK has gone downhill. I mean, a much smaller share of the world economy, smaller share of the world's military, and so on. So large population does not equate necessarily to prosperity. It would be perfectly possible for the UK to go back to 50 million people and still be a great place to live. In fact, maybe an easier place to live with easier housing.
Carol, let me bring you into this. Carol Kilgore is in the studio with me here on this in this story. I'm very interested in what's happening because it is multi-layered, isn't it? On a very basic level, people are not having enough sex with people that they love. Let's be honest here. Let's tackle the elephant in the room. That's how you make babies, generally. So either they're not meeting people that they love, they're not interested in meeting people that they love, they're not interested in getting married, then what's happening here? This is just a breakdown of society as we know it, Carol.
Yeah, that's a way perspective to look at it. Another way to look at it is a lot of women now have opportunities, career-wise, education, in graduate school that they didn't have before.
But we've had that for decades, haven't we, since the 60s?
It's still different now, isn't it? Because women can actually go to grad school, they can get a higher paying job than most of the men their age. So most women of a certain age, Gen X, they'd rather just kind of make the money and have their career, and it doesn't really make economic sense for them to partner up with someone who's less successful. That's not a very palatable way to put it, but that's the way it is.
Connor Stringer, let me bring you in. You're a young, virile, handsome man, a mover and a shaker around the bars of Washington, D.C. So, how do you feel about having babies, Connor? It's not an offer, but how do you feel about having babies? Because you are you're the youngest person here on this panel. Is it on your radar?
You know what, I'll be honest, Bev, it's not in the near future. I mean, it is eventually. Of course I'd love to have kids.
How old are you?
But I think I'm the grand old age of 27.
Oh! You haven't got that long. I'm serious, your fertility is going to fall off a cliff at 30 as well. It's not just women, it's a myth, that.
It is, you're right, absolutely right. Look, in good time, I think at the moment for me, as you know, and actually as your panel alluded to, it's career focus and career first, and that's the mindset I think of a lot of people my age, is that we kind of get into this drive of wanting to be in a good place in our careers before we have kids, because it's a bit of a stigma, you know, unfortunately, that sometimes once you have kids, career slows and things become a lot more difficult, which isn't necessarily the case. You see the White House here have done such a good job in pioneering that and trying to change that. So the answer is yes, do want them, but in good time.
Simon, how do we change this? Because it isn't a trend that should be welcomed. We need to encourage young people to have families earlier, maybe, you know, try and share the workload as parents so that you can both work and you can both be parents. What else can we do, Simon?
Well, we've got to accept that family is a responsibility and a sacrifice, but also an incredible joy, and one that has made life worth living for all of our ancestors for all of eternity. So if we suddenly decide now that having a career and, you know, maybe a slightly larger house and a faster car is more important than propagating the species and the joy that comes of having children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and knowing that we're not going to be the last in our entire line, you know, we've come to a pretty bad point. But there are some serious things that the government could do to make it, I don't just mean the UK government, but the American government. Here in the US, we penalize couples for being married. I have a friend who has been with the same woman for many years. They have 3 kids together. They're not married. And the reason is that the benefits they get in the state he lives in for being unmarried, his wife gets health care and various other kinds of benefits that would cost them $10,000 or more a year if they were married. So we've got to get rid of the marriage tax penalty that we have. We've got to do what the French do, which is to encourage, you know, large families with bonuses on, you know, when you go to museums and you go out, you get transportation discounts and so on, and make it affordable to have a large family, as well as fun and you know, attractive, which it is. But we can't penalize people for having children.
Yeah, Paul, maybe we've just not given family life a good press in recent years. We know how hard it is. It is hard being a parent, but it is also incredibly rewarding. And I'm sure when we lie on our deathbeds, you and I will, you know, we'll look back and we'll be grateful that we had kids.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't think it's too conspiratorial to say that this has been the plan to essentially arrive at this point. We've created an environment in which both parents have to work. Adults have, whether we want to encourage women into the same careers as men, or just, you know, going back several decades, encouraging women into work and to aspire to do all the same things men could, is one thing. But one of the side effects of that has been that we have got an environment now where a father and a mother do need to work. So therefore, they're not in a position to look after children in the same way. We talk a lot on this channel about the Fabian Society because it seems to be propping up the Labour Party considerably at this moment in time. The Fabian Society is built on incremental societal change and the reduction of population.
Yeah.
Those are 2 of its key missions in life. And what we're seeing now is the sort of degradation of the Judeo-Christian way of living. People have to work, and it's not affecting, interestingly, other faiths. Muslims, for instance, are growing at an exponential rate, and they don't seem to be operating within the same structure. They do operate differently. The West require, like I say, this, ever since the Industrial Revolution, essentially, have encouraged people to work. You must work. Children get in the way of work.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to have to unwind some of that and put the baby back in the bath.
And you're so right, because actually there was a story this week that made me despair, which is when Wes Streeting was talking about the new chickenpox vaccine for children. And the way that he sold this on social media, he said it's a terrible inconvenience when parents have to take time off work to look after their children when they have chickenpox. I just thought, I can't work out if this sort of thick or evil.
Well, it's a terrible inconvenience to Labour.
It's got to be one of the other. Yeah, but it's just what a terrible thing to say.
Yeah.
give your child this drug that they probably don't need, because it would be awful for you to have a day off work and look after your child. That's what parents are meant to do. When your kids are ill, you take a day off work to look after them. I'm sorry, that just comes with the territory. And it just seems to be worse. The messaging around family with this government I find incredibly depressing. And as you say, Connor, very much in contrast to the messaging around family from the White House. Caroline Leavitt as well, of course, press secretary, expecting her second baby. Congratulations to her. She announced that over Christmas, didn't she? The White House is full of young, working mums. Really is. It genuinely is. And, and he's, you know, people who say, oh, Trump has a woman problem, I always say, have you seen the women who work for him? He's surrounded by strong, fertile, young mothers and strong women. So he's living it, Connor, out there.
It's actually extraordinary, like you say. It is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. They are coming to work, like you say, Caroline Leavitt expecting her second child. And interesting, when you speak to Caroline and other women in that administration, it is so accommodating. And Susie Wiles, the most loveliest, powerful woman in the country, who is so hardworking, has created an environment where it's encouraged, go off and spend time with your kids. You know, bring them to work, have them on your lap. Caroline's always seen with her little one on her hip sometimes around the White House. And that is an environment factor, and that does come with an onus in, like, you know, as you discussed, in the career sector, in the jobs, and how do we create that environment. The White House is a very good model.
Yeah, it really is. Right, thank you so much, and thank you for joining me, Simon Hankinson from the Heritage Foundation. Really interesting statistic. We've got to keep an eye on that situation. Meet people you love and have sex with them after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Lots of interesting weather to talk about at the moment, and it's another cold and icy start for many of us this morning. Dry and bright though for most through the day. Still some showers around. Early doors, a few showers coming into parts of Wales, the west of England. Showers also continuing across the north of Scotland, northeast England. And we're going to see a mix of rain and sleet around the coast, sleet and snow inland. So further snow accumulations, but possibly not quite as many snow accumulations for northern Scotland compared with recent days. For many, it's a dry and bright day with sunny spells, but a cold feel, windier compared with the start of the week. So temperatures of 3 to 6 Celsius, feeling rather cold. Now, we're going to end the day with clear spells for much of central Scotland, further showers coming into the north and northeast of Scotland, 1 or 2 showers drifting into the southeast of Scotland, northeast England as well. Northern Ireland, though, by this time, we'll see an area of cloud thickening up and some outbreaks of mostly rain, but some snow over hills moving in. This is light rain. It's going to push into Pembrokeshire, Devon, Cornwall as well at this stage. As it moves east, it will tend to fizzle away. It does contain slightly milder air, so mostly this is going to be rain rather than snow. And it tends to push a lot of cloud in across the UK. So less frosty, less icy on Thursday morning, but still some slippery surfaces to wake up to, particularly towards the east. And we'll see some brightness towards the southwest, but for most it's a grey start to the day with bits and pieces of rain or sleet around first thing. They tend to dry up and then brighter skies turn up in the east, whilst a next band of rain turns up in the southwest. Now this is Storm Goretti. This has been named by Meteo France because of very strong winds expected over northern France. It will bring strong winds to the southwest, but it's also going to bring a risk of snow to Wales, the Midlands and East Anglia.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, let's delve into the main stories in front of today's newspapers. Joy of this show is we get to look at the papers before everybody else does. So let's have a look at this. Telegraph are leaning on this drink driving changes to kill off rural pubs. Is this a war on the motorist? Another step in the battle against getting you to just give up your cars. We'll have a look at that in just a minute. We'll be discussing that. The Daily Mail are leading on this extraordinary story about the police blunder which defies belief. There was a car accident in which 4 young people were injured. I think 2 of them died. But basically the parents were told that the their son had died. The other one was told their son was in intensive care, and they got the children mixed up, the teenagers, 17-year-olds. And so the police then had to say, actually, your son has died, and actually your son hasn't died. It's the most extraordinary story. The Metro leading with Grokky Horror Show. OK, this takes a little bit of understanding, but Grok, which is the AI application aspect of Twitter or X, is being told you have to take down these images because it is very quickly able to create sexualised images of celebrities or non-celebrities. The Sun. One for the road, Labour B-test blitz. It's the same story that we saw on the front page of The Telegraph, which is about the fact that the drink drive limits could be changed, so meaning that you don't drink anything when you get behind the wheel of a car. Would you be in support of that? The Guardian are leading with UK and France seal the coalition deal to send troops to post-war Ukraine. And the newspaper, boots on the ground, UK military bases in Ukraine to keep peace, also discussing that same story. The Independent, leading with Britain, signs a deal to deploy troops inside Ukraine, the same one, and also a picture of President Trump doing his little impression of a transgender weightlifter. The Daily Express, Britain to be hit by major snowstorm blast. They do love a weather story on the front page of the Express. The Mirror, drive to safety, of course. Revolution on our roads. The Mirror, of course, supporting this Labour plan to take driving and have a radical overhaul, they're saying, of car laws in a bid to cut crashes and to save lives. The Times, UK agrees to boots on the ground in Ukraine, and a full-length picture of President Trump doing his little dance there. So let's talk to my panel about all of these. Let's talk to all of you here. Right, do you want to talk about this drink drive story that's on the front page of the papers? So the drink limit will lower, over 70s facing eye tests, learning to drive take longer, all sorts of steps that Labour, I think this is going to be the round in a matter of hours, actually. The MPs, the Labour MPs will be out talking to the press about this. They're very, very pleased with this. Motorists are going to face tougher rules on drink driving, eye tests and seatbelts in Britain's biggest shake-up of road safety in decades. Carol, let me ask you, is this tinkering around the edges? Should this genuinely be at the forefront of what Labour are trying to do at the moment, do you think, in this country?
Well, I mean, aren't they well known for being purveyors of the nanny state?
Yeah.
I get that it's going to be a lot easier for police officers to know whether to arrest someone for drunken driving, and just, you know, having bright line rules is much easier to enforce. You might have people that just don't get into a car at all after they've had one beer, but really, is that how people operate? I mean, you mentioned earlier that our government doesn't seem to really understand human nature and psychology.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to deter people who would otherwise get in a car after one beer.
They don't understand joy either. That's my issue, Paul. They don't understand pleasure. They don't understand that life is not just about being abstemious and policed all the time. I am perfectly capable of going for a pub lunch, having one very small glass of white wine with my roast chicken and driving home. I am capable of doing that. Just get out of my life.
So true. So true. And by the way, particularly with regards to the drink driving limit, this is not going to increase safety. It's already incredibly low. The last statistics I looked up during the break, these aren't just available to me, are that 260 people died as a result in the UK of drink driving in 2023. Those are the latest statistics available. That's incredibly low in a population of 70 million people. Let's say 35 million of those, 40 million of those are adults. So who could drink? It's already very low. It's already socially taboo to drink and drive.
Yeah.
Nobody goes out deliberately and drink and drive. And you both hit the nail on the head. Those who are going to drink and drive will continue to drink and drive, irrespective of what the law are. The same way those who are going to murder irrespective of what the law is. We don't need to do that. And I mentioned this briefly on Patrick's show. The culture's changed around pub culture. It's just, it doesn't prevail in the same way anymore. These drink driving limits were kept as they were to try and support pubs, understanding that it was culturally part of Britain. That's being changed now. It's literally being changed. And now this is trying to support it. I get quite annoyed at seeing how much pleasure Labour MPs take in enforcing this stuff on people's lives. The government is not there to say this is how you should live, we're going to create the rules and you will live by them. That's not what it's for, not for me, which is why I'm no longer a Labour voter and I'm no interest in him whatsoever. That's why I could never, ever endorse someone like Keir Starmer, because all he is interested in and excited by, sometimes erotically, Bev, the rules. He loves the rules. I cannot get my head around it.
Yeah. Connor, let me come to you, because for me it's another example of the innocent being punished for the actions of the guilty. You know, if you're going to go out and you're going to drink 15 pints and get behind the wheel of a car, I can't help you. You're lost. Like, you know, that person is a terrible person who is risking other people's lives. But why should I pay the price and you, Connor, pay the price for people who are going to do that anyway? Because this idiocy is not going to make the roads any safer. Nobody that's had half a shandy with their pork scratchings is running people off the road, Connor.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bev. And there'll be, you know, drinkers up and down the country who enjoy doing just that, going for the Sunday chicken and a small glass of wine and, you know, being completely capable to drive home. And that's the point, isn't it? I mean, Paul, I think nailed it very much on the head. The culture around drinking and driving is already set. Nobody does it, and there's such a big taboo about it. It's policed well. It's a big no-no. And the drink drive level that's set at the moment is set at a limit which, for the average person, doesn't actually leave you impaired. So I'm struggling to get my head around why we need to lower it. There hasn't been an increase, from what I understand, of drink driving cases. They seem to be relatively low. And look, let's get this straight. One drink driving death is one too many. But I want to see the rationale. I want to understand why. What is the benefit in doing this if there hasn't been an uptick in cases, and if the limit at where it's already set is entirely reasonable and not deemed to be impaired. But as you say, and kind of alluded to, the actual big losers in this are also the pubs. They're being battered, and now they're faced with not being able to serve a single pint to those that get behind the wheel of a car.
They're just obsessed with keeping us safe. We're going to keep you safe. That's what they lie awake at night. How can I keep people safe? We're quite capable of keeping ourselves safe. Thank you. Stop it. Just get out of my... just go away. Let us live. Let us be happy and joyful. Should we look at this paper in the Telegraph about... This is a story of joy. So this is a couple. Well, this is a piece in the Telegraph about. In fact, let me just. How am I going to say this without getting myself into trouble? Right. This is a couple who are trying to sell to you the idea that we should all be in open relationships. So it's a 32-year-old Devon Ching and his wife. They started their relationship, admittedly, a little less traditional because they met at a sex-positive party. And they're trying to sell to you the idea that the solution to relationships going wrong in the 21st century is having non-monogamous, free to explore sexual and even romantic connections with friends. And the headline is, it's nice having friends you can sleep with. Now, I think it's nice having friends that you can, I don't know, play badminton with, or go for a walk with, or do a crossword with. I don't need friends that I sleep with. Isn't this the problem? This is why, Carol, we're not having enough babies, because people no longer know what a relationship's meant to look like.
Potentially. It's also a symptom of the hookup culture and dating apps being rife. And, you know, like on Tinder and Hinge and all these dating apps, it's full of couples that are looking for, you know, swingers that are looking for additional people to, you know, have to enjoy whatever they do with them, with other people. So that's just where we are at as a society.
But these relationships where people have more than one partner, Paul, they are becoming really quite common, especially in our age group.
Polyamorous.
Polyamorous, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, you read my mind.
So anyone I have ever encountered that's become polyamorous, other than just blokes.
You mean they've done it deliberately as opposed
just
to
wandering around saying
conscious
that they're polyamorous. Their wife doesn't know, but they happen to be. But it never seems to work. There's a reason that we like to settle with one partner. There's a security involved in that. The idea, and it's an intimate act as well, sex.
Yes.
It's something to be enjoyed with someone. I mean, I sound like the kind of bloke I never wanted to listen to when I was 18. But it's the sort of thing, you know, you want that intimacy. Yeah. You want to be able to enjoy life with somebody else. Now, I'm not sure, I don't know, I can hear Connor laughing. Connor's just out there in DC, just sowing his wild seed.
It's just brilliant. Yeah.
we turned into Mary Whitehouse.
I'm not sowing anything.
Yeah, the Mary Whitehouse hour here with Bev Turner and Paul Cox. We're very buttoned up. We're not buttoned up, Connor, but this is your newspaper, Connor Stringer, encouraging people to go out there and be polyamorous and normalising this.
I'm not sure about encouraging it, but I can tell you what, would you believe me, I've told you that was probably our most read story of the day. Forget Venezuela, forget everything else. That's the only thing people are reading. People love to read it, don't they? Absolutely love it. It is bizarre, isn't it? And as both of you touched on, it's an increase. I think this is becoming more and more common. But you're absolutely right. I can't actually remember a story where this doesn't end in tears either, as you say.
Yeah.
You know, this is all fun and games for the thrills for the first however many months and weeks, but it ultimately always end in tears. And you always have to settle down with somebody in the end, don't you, Bev? Surely.
Couple, apparently they've been doing this for 2 years, and they said that they are free to have relationships with friends guided by a few non-negotiables. And so you've got this trad wife trend gaining traction, and yet you've also got these couples who are rewriting the rule books. I just don't know, Paul, how you start that conversation with your friends. Like, how do you have that conversation around a picnic in a park?
I'm kind of perturbed by the word friends in this. But like you say, I mean, we've all got friends, and if you're in a couple, you've got other coupley friends. I've never had that conversation in decades of being an adult, where I've said, what do you want to eat?
Yeah.
We've run out of Twiglets. Why don't we make children?
I'm nervous asking my friends to play badminton. I'm not going to, leap at the opportunities to ask them to go to bed with me, for goodness sake. Anyway, right, moving on to something a little, it's not really. I was going to say a little more decorous. It's not. This is the details of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's divorce settlement have just emerged in the last few moments. So they've got their daughters, Sunday Rose, who's 17, and Faith Margaret, who is 15. Now, the custody arrangement is that the girls will spend 306 days a year with their mother, which sounds a little like a sort of typical... Is that terribly stereotypical of me to say that?
I don't know if it is, actually. I think you're probably right. That works out. We were working this out in the break. That is the father having the children every other weekend, which I think is about the standard, isn't it?
Sadly, it is about the standard, yeah. They've also agreed that neither of them are going to pay child support, but they've got monthly incomes exceeding $100,000 each. So you can kind of understand why you might not have to go to the other one and say, I may not be able to pay the electricity bill this month, can you help me out? All property, including investments, bank accounts, household furniture, appliances, vehicles, personal items, it's going to all be divided up by mutual agreement, each retaining what is currently in their possession. I think, Carol, what I find a little bit uncomfortable about these sorts of stories is the idea that we know. That we actually know the detail of their divorce arrangement. As a divorced woman, I'd be sort of mortified to think there were people on TV talking about what I got and what my husband got, etc.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a little bit sad that he only gets, 60 days?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are a lot of fathers out there that don't get to see their kids very often, and that must be very painful.
Or don't want to see their kids very often.
Or they do, but the ex-wife doesn't let them.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they can be friends and separate their 100 grand a month each, amicably. It'd probably be quite easy, wouldn't it? I think we'd all manage that.
I could live on that.
I could live on that. Now, nearly 1 in 5 Gen Z Britons say that they would prefer a dictatorship over a democracy, according to a new poll. So this survey found that 18% of 13 to 28-year-olds believe the best way to run a country is with a strong leader who doesn't have to bother with elections. Just 12% of adults agree. At the other end of the scale, baby boomers are most committed to democracy, with only 7% backing authoritarian rule. And the survey also found that younger people are far less worried about populism than their parents and grandparents, which raises the question, is it a warning sign for democracy? Is it evidence that a new generation are craving tougher, more decisive Trumpian-like leadership? Connor, this is from your newspaper as well. What does it tell us about the future?
What does it tell us? Is it just Gen Z trying to be cool and a bit edgy? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, is it cool to just like dictators all of a sudden? No, Putin's hip and no, Maduro's misunderstood. I don't think so. It sounds a bit nonsensical to me. But you're right. Perhaps I think the reason why people are feeling this way is because of the endless election cycles that we've become accustomed to. I mean, in Britain alone, we've had what, donkey's number of PMs inside the last decade. I think the longest since then has been Tony Blair, and that seems like a decade ago, and some. So I think people are getting more and more fed up, and especially the youth, as they see Prime Minister after Prime Minister, leader after leader, and little change in that period of time, despite all the promises.
And Carol, just in a word, if you had to imagine the next generation, are they going to be more left or more right?
More pragmatic. I mean, they're first generation to grow up with mobile phones at the touch of a button. You know, you've got 10-year-olds and even babies playing on tablets.
And I don't know about you, Paul, but I see the next generation being much more right-wing.
Me too.
Maybe we played a part in that. Right, I will be back with you tomorrow night. Sleep well. Night-night.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Lots of interesting weather to talk about at the moment, and it's another cold and icy start for many of us this morning. Dry and bright though for most through the day, still some showers around. Early doors, a few showers coming into parts of Wales, the west of England. Showers also continuing across the north of Scotland, northeast England. And we're going to see a mix of rain and sleet around the coast, sleet and snow inland. So further snow accumulations, but possibly not quite as many snow accumulations for northern Scotland compared with recent days. For many, it's a dry and bright day with sunny spells, but a cold feel, windier compared with the start of the week. So temperatures of 3 to 6 Celsius, feeling rather cold. Now, we're going to end the day with clear spells for much of central Scotland, further showers coming into the north and northeast of Scotland, 1 or 2 showers drifting into the southeast of Scotland, northeast England as well. Northern Ireland, though, by this time, we'll see an area of cloud thickening up and some outbreaks of mostly rain, but some snow over hills moving in. This is light rain. It's going to push into Pembrokeshire, Devon, Cornwall as well at this stage. As it moves east, it will tend to fizzle away. It does contain slightly milder air, so mostly this is going to be rain rather than snow. And it tends to push a lot of cloud in across the UK. So less frosty, less icy on Thursday morning, but still some slippery surfaces to wake up to, particularly towards the east. And we'll see some brightness towards the southwest, but for most it's a grey start to the day with bits and pieces of rain or sleet around first thing. They tend to dry up and then brighter skies turn up in the east, whilst the next band of rain turns up in the southwest. Now this is Storm Goretti. This has been named by Météo France because of very strong winds expected over northern France. It will bring strong winds to the southwest, but it's also going to bring a risk of snow to Wales, the Midlands and East Anglia.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till